But for many Massachusetts residents, these conditions that made housing unaffordable and even more so unattainable existed long before the COVID-19 pandemic. Countless individuals and their families across the Commonwealth face perilous housing situations marked by astronomical rents and the threats of eviction, long before the current pandemic and economic fallout. And that's why at the beginning of this session, I had followed and filed the Homes Act as a solution to the enduring impact of eviction for Massachusetts residents. Currently in the Commonwealth, an eviction leaves an indelible mark on one's record. Now, last session, we've heard about a different type of record. During the criminal justice reform debates, we've heard about the dire effects of a criminal record and the effect that could have on someone's ability to find a job, secure student housing, or secure student loans, or even just find affordable housing. And on that, we acted. We ensured that a person found guilty of a misdemeanor in this Commonwealth could have their record sealed after 3 years. Someone found guilty of a felony could do the same after 7 years. And we did this because it made sense to allow people to move forward with their lives in the Commonwealth. However, today in the Commonwealth, for the over 1 million people who have eviction records, some by no fault of their own, there is no remedy for them to have that record sealed. So tenants suffer indefinitely from the permanent stigma of an eviction record. And now with reports and, as we can see through, just applications for rental assistance that have come about in the last few months, and applications for government programs like RAFT, we're possibly facing 30,000 summary process complaints for possession being filed right in October if the state of emergency is lifted. So now this legislation is needed more than ever. The need for secure housing is critical in the Commonwealth. And we cannot predict how the economic fallout will continue to have an impact long after the COVID-19 pandemic subsides. These 30,000 individuals and families waiting for that shoe to drop should not be punished for the economic circumstances that may lead to their evictions. So by sealing eviction records, we not only provide new opportunities for housing and for families, but we will provide a new opportunity for life, for improving health, education, and economic outcomes for our most vulnerable residents. This amendment would allow minors to not be named on a summary process eviction complaint. And if a minor is unlawfully named on a summary process eviction complaint, their names can be expunged and their records dismissed. This amendment would also give people an opportunity to have their no-fault eviction records sealed. Cases that are dismissed, and also cases where defendants have satisfied their judgment, they too, their eviction records can be sealed, and it prevents the sealed records from being reported to the housing or credit agencies. Through these measures, families and individuals will be able to pursue housing options without the burden of their past inabilities to afford rent. Now, I applaud this body for the equity lens in which we now look at all legislation. Because through this amendment, we are recognizing that whether it's through gentrification or general lack of housing availability, communities of color are at a heightened risk of losing stable and affordable housing. A report from the Eviction Lab at Princeton found that low-income women of color, survivors of domestic violence, and families with children are the most likely scenarios and persons to be facing an eviction in Massachusetts. And while Black renters make up only 11% of renters in the Commonwealth, Black women face the greatest risk of having an eviction filed against them. 500 of every 10,000 Black women renters have had an eviction case filed against them, as opposed to 200 of every 10,000 white women renters. Black renters are 2.5 times more likely to have an eviction filed against them. Now, what the criminal justice system and the stigma of an eviction record was to black men in society for so many decades, what we set out to fix last session, so too is the summary process eviction system and the stigma of an eviction record to black women in the Commonwealth. While the criminal system for years locked up black men, the eviction system has locked out and blocked out black women. And while there is no question that we need to increase affordable housing in this Commonwealth, to invest in our current public housing stock, right now today, by sealing evictions, we will help those who have already been displaced. This Homes Act amendment will ensure that our housing system is more equitable and does not punish those who are financially marginalized in Massachusetts. By sealing evictions, we can work to ensure that housing is a right for everyone in the Commonwealth, and I hope this amendment is adopted.